You mentioned I was the youngest AA guy in the country. That was a cool feather in my cap versus being the guy that had to quit the job because he wasn't getting paid. That's a much different tone set to a career when nobody knows your name yet. You don't have a reputation yet. Everything you do is generating that reputation for the first time.
So we'll start with Schaumburg then a little bit, and then we'll get to Montgomery. Now, I will pull the curtain back because, you are guest one, not just because you're the voice of the World Series, but because you and I did intern together summer of 2009, the Schaumburg Flyers. And on my first day, you had already been there for a little bit. I started a little bit later. And I remember walking in my first day a little before 9 a.m., and you were there working the phones. You were you're in this crowded room with all the interns, and you were on the phone. I'm like, what is this guy's the play-by-play man? What is he doing? Right. And I believe you were selling suites.
Yeah.
And so why don't you tell somebody about tell our listeners about some of the non-play-by-play things that you would do? Because as you said, you were there from 9 a.m. until you were done with postgame.
Yeah, group sales. I remember I would get these databases of all the schools in Chicagoland and just go through and cold call schools and school districts, and I don't even know what I was doing, but I was calling, trying to get groups out to the ballpark, and it's like they brought in as many interns / as much free labor as they could and just had these kids hammer the phones and see what they could do getting groups out to the ballpark. I couldn't tell you what my hit rate was or how many suites I actually got booked, but I know it wasn't zero. I did get some groups to the ballpark, and even in Montgomery, I was in charge of all the media stuff, so game notes and press releases, all the post-game stuff. I was in charge of stadium signage in Montgomery. So, and then as is cliche in minor league baseball, everybody pulls the tarp. So you do a little bit of everything. You sign up to be the broadcaster and you dream of doing that. But in order to do that, in order to be valuable enough to be the broadcaster, the thing that you want to do, you got to do whatever else they ask you to do as well, and that could be a long list of things.
I was in the booth one day, and the tarp was on the field, and I was working on game notes, and I remember hoping that nobody was going to see me. and we were in our dress slacks, polo, and that was. But that's the stuff that you had to do to break in, and the. Going from Schaumburg Flyers to Montgomery Biscuits, you had a little bit of an almost detour in there. So what was kind of your path? Because it's unusual to go from independent league right out of college to AA. I believe you were the youngest broadcaster in AA baseball at that time. So how did you get to the Montgomery Biscuits?
That Schaumburg job, part of my deal was trying to lock myself into their expansion franchise. Same ownership group was starting the Lake County Fielders. So I used that whole summer, 2009, as this audition to have the owner ask me at the end of that summer internship, hey, come be the broadcaster for the new franchise next year, to have this job in place. And it turned out that at the end of the summer, I pretty much had that. I had made it clear and worked hard and showed them that I was deserving of the position. So I go into college thinking I am set. I got this amazing position. This is going to be a dream come true. This is going to be like the big leagues first year, new stadium, awesome fan base, I'm sure. Well, I'll tell you why I didn't go there in a second, but I'll tell you that I'm glad I didn't, because that stadium never got built. The team played games, but it was at a high school field. And the broadcaster would set up shop in the wooden bleachers behind home plate. The players weren't getting paid. The broadcaster didn't get paid, and ultimately quit on the air. That's the position that I was so fired up to have. I wound up not taking that position because a couple people encouraged me, hey, it's great that you have that, but apply to anything else you see that might be a step above that. So when I was back at Beloit finishing up my senior semester there, I applied for Montgomery. I think there were 130 people that applied for it, and it was pretty much why not? Why not apply for a AA job? And I got it. It just was the right combination of right place, right time, and right hiring people to take a chance on a young guy. And I didn't lie on my resume or cover letter, but I probably positioned it and framed it to not make it as obvious that I was still a college student. But who knows? If I had not gotten that job, if they had not taken a chance on me, I think I still would have been successful, but that would have been to go through what the people that worked for Lake County went through. I would think that'd stunt you for at least a couple of years, like mentally, and then just reputation wise. I mean, you mentioned I was the youngest AA guy in the country. That was a cool feather in my cap versus being the guy that had to quit the job because he wasn't getting paid. That's a much different tone set to a career when nobody knows your name yet. You don't have a reputation yet. Everything you do is generating that reputation for the first time. So I've often thought about the butterfly effect of that little thing. I mean, not a little thing, but getting the Biscuits job versus had I gone down the other path.
Now, one part of the Biscuits job, because it's not like you necessarily knew somebody at the Montgomery Biscuits. It wasn't like your parents weren't broadcasters. It wasn't like that kind of situation. But you did meet somebody in broadcasting a bit of a fortuitous way that, if I recall correctly, help be a reference for you in Montgomery, and that was Len Kasper. How did you get on Len's radar?
Grew up a big Cubs fan, so just by osmosis became a Len fan and listened to him or Pat Hughes every single day. And going to a Cubs game, probably sophomore year of college, I wrote him a letter explaining all this and asking him if I could get in touch with him sometime and pick his brain. And my dad and I parked in Wrigleyville and walked the mile or whatever we had to the stadium. I had the letter in my pocket, and I got to the booth to hand him the letter or give it to the press box security, Keith, who is still there to this day, and it was gone. I dropped the letter, so I was upset. I put all this time into a handwritten letter. Now it wasn't going to get to Len. Cubs lose the game, of course. So I'm driving back, sad. Get a call and a voicemail, and it's the owner of the Taco Bell across the street from Wrigley Field. Somebody had found my letter and brought it in to her, and she was going to make sure that it made its way to Len. A couple weeks after that, I got an email from Len, and he listened to my stuff and became a help to me and became a mentor to me. And when I was a finalist for the Montgomery job, so it had gone from 130 to 20 phone interviews to, 8 in-person interviews to a few finalists. He made a call to the owners, and the ownership group is based in Chicago, so he carried a lot of clout, and I think it helped push me over the edge to get that job.